So, guys, I want to talk about the Japanese anime Violet Evergarden. And one of the reasons why I wanted to watch this anime is because I saw a very powerful music video by Lana Del Rey called Summertime Sadness. And that song got stuck in my head. And then I saw an AMV with Violet Evergarden. And I saw like the visuals and I read some reviews about saying that this is one of the most emotionally powerful animes ever made. So that kind of got me interested in like buying it, and that's always like for $30 for like the 13, 14 episodes. And I also like animes that are like 13, 14 episodes because they're easy to watch. I have a very busy schedule. And I want to say a couple of things about this anime, like before I start really quick. That I'm up to like episode 8 or 9, and I've not watched the whole series. So I don't know what happens at the end, but I definitely want to give a review because I have a very busy schedule. And what I want to say is that first of all, Violet Evergarden is about this little girl who was a child soldier, and she's in this world that looks like a mix of World War One and also like the 1800s, except she has prosthetic arms. And what happens is that she's discovered by a major in an army, just as a little orphan girl, and she has like superior like killing and fighting abilities. So his commanding officer told him, just use her and like throw her to the curb when you're done. And he decides to kind of also just do two things, like use her for military uses because he's told to do that. And then he also adopts her as like a surrogate father. And what happens is that, they fight in war. Eventually he gets killed, she survives, trying to protect him. And then she also gets shot in the hand, so she has prosthetic arms. And then after that happens, she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, and she lives her life as a ghostwriter. And with her life as a ghostwriter, she has prosthetic arms. So, she has prosthetic hands. And also, too, she is psychologically delayed, so she has a hard time being a ghostwriter in the beginning, where she's trying to interpret people's words and what they mean in subtext or coming up with ideas. Like she's better off with people who are like, well, I'm gonna tell you what I want you to say, and go a little off from it. But when and that's like the whole story of Violet Evergarden, and they do a lot of good things within this anime. I think they do a great job of just kind of establishing who she is, and her backstory and her motivation. Her main motivation is that she's not good with subtext or the meaning behind words, and she's trying to just be a ghostwriter because she wants to know what it means when the major says "I love you," and that's riveting and that's very, very sad. And that's one of the geniuses of this anime, is that they know how to do emotional beats and very sad beats very, very well, and make these very, very powerful episodes that are emotionally powerful. Like it's definitely like what I call emotional porn, and you see it in a lot of animes. And also the animation is done very, very well. But I think that how it does post-traumatic stress disorder is done very well, and depression and survivor skill is done very well. And this is hard for me to say, but I want to bring up a personal story about myself. That a little over 10 years ago, I worked at a job called Conway Stores, and the store was robbed by its own security guards, and police were aiming guns at me. And there was a lot of workplace bullying, so I had a manager who kind of made fun of me and other people who almost lost their lives. And there was a lot of workplace bullying. So in addition to almost getting shot at the store, because they hired bad people, my manager was also just, making fun of me almost losing my life, and then also bullying me afterwards. So it's almost like, how much can you kick a person when they're down? And so when I watch this anime, I would say, I've not been diagnosed with depression or post-traumatic stress disorder. I think that it's part of my psyche. And I would say there's a lot of things in Violet Evergarden that is very parallel. Like, she says like she's burning and she feels like the fire of her sins are consuming her. Like as if she's been consumed by hellfire. Because I think that one thing she remembers is somebody saying to her, you are a ghostwriter. You're writing all these beautiful letters to make people happy, for people. You're typing up these letters for people to make the person that they're receiving the letters very, very happy and moved. But at the end of the day, you've killed so many people in war. So that makes her feel very, very guilty. And she almost has a sense of, guilt from being a murderer, but also because if your soldiers are murderers, even if you say war or whatever, they are murderers. She has a sense of like survivor's guilt. No, she has a sense of like guilt from the past. And, that's true with people with PTSD because they went through a lot of intensity. And accurately, there's been some really bad things I've done in my life. And I think that somebody who's gone through a very traumatic experience like myself, I would say that there's accuracy between what the anime presented and what happened to me. I think obviously, she was somebody who, she really loves the major a lot. So she has a lot of like depression growing up, and part of her like psyche is that she doesn't take care of herself. Like she's looking for the major, but she's willing to run outside in a blizzard. She doesn't eat that much. She doesn't take care of herself that much, I feel. And I think that's also true with people who have trauma from child abuse, no parental figures, like you're an orphan, you have to live on the street. And then when she's taken in by the military, she's treated very, very badly, except for the major. Like there's a person grabbing her head and saying, oh, well, isn't this interesting? Because obviously, and this is really sick to say, but this is the truth, that sometimes if there's a little orphan girl on the street and it's in a war zone, people know that they can do whatever they want to that girl. It could be sexual, it could be violent, it could be to be sadistic. Well, I can hit you, I can abuse you because there's something in me that has the evil doctrine. But, and she gets some of that treatment. But I will kind of say that, just kind of say that I think that her outcome from that is that, she's good at fighting, she's good at killing. In military zones, she's usually the front of the line or always going on the missions with the highest chance of fatality. So putting yourself in danger is something that comes from PTSD or low self-esteem because you're like, you know what, well, I don't value my life because other people don't value my life type of thing. So they got that correct. I also think that, another thing that I would say is that, I want to talk a little bit about the weaknesses. I think they do PTSD and depression and somebody who's had a traumatic past and the outcome of that very, very well in this anime. There's some things that I don't like about this anime. Like the whole concept is that she's a ghostwriter, and she types up letters for people. And one thing I didn't like is that this whole anime looks like it's set in a futuristic World War I. That you see a bit of Victorian, people dressing up in Victorian clothing. Still, that style was popular as it was kind of dying out in the 1920s. Also, there are televisions and other things like that available. So I do feel it's like the past and the future together. Her prosthetic fingers, obviously, there's a, even though like, they look like Terminator hands, like all metal and stuff, not like actual fingers. I do think that, it kind of has like a mix of the past and the future. And I was kind of saying that if it has a mix of the past and the future, it doesn't make sense as the concept that she's a ghostwriter. Like, wouldn't people be educated in this world enough to know how to write letters themselves? And then also, there's no such thing as a professional ghostwriter, somebody writing love letters and people being swooned by that. That was popular from in the time of like Shakespeare and when in the 15, 16, 1700s, when the wealthy people were educated, received an education, knew how to write, knew how to make these stuff. So I kind of just didn't like how it just didn't seem realistic to me. You have this society that looks like it's around the 1920s with some elements of 2020 and then you have them have love letters and writing letters to families, and it moves people. But that's something that would work in society if it was done in the 1500s or the 1600s. So it didn't feel believable to me. And I think that just felt too much of a mix. You would have to almost like put this in the fantasy genre to kind of make that work. Another thing that I did not like about Violet Evergarden is the fact that she's the only character that's kind of almost like this super soldier. Like she's this, she has the ability to throw men around like twice her size. In military zones, she has the ability to be, people shooting at her, and she like darts away really, really quickly. And one of my favorite Japanese anime is noir. So I will just like throw that in there. Like in noir, you almost see the same thing where it's almost like you have an invincible main character. Well, they're always gonna miss the bullets. They're always gonna dodge bullets unless you want them to get hit by bullets. Nobody else has their powers. So how can you kind of have a character in a world where they're the only one with accelerating super soldier fighting abilities? It does not make any sense, and it's not believable because if I was in the military and I was the only one in the world that could like be a one-man army, throw people like 3 or 4 times my size, and be in the front lines and just shooting down people like I'm the Terminator. If I'm the only person in the world that can do that, if I write a fictional story about that, it just doesn't seem believable because why can only one do that versus like other people? At least in like animes like Akame ga Kill and other things like that. Akame ga Kill, if I'm saying that right, at least you have other characters with special powers. At least in Naruto, it's around the theme of reincarnation and like history repeating itself. So it makes sense that you have a character like Naruto be so advanced because it's set up that he comes from a lineage. But if you have an anime like this where you have one character with super abilities and it's not set up from the start, it lacks verisimilitude. I think that the other thing is that it is stereotypical because I see a lot of animes that do that in the girls with gun genres. You have a female character with a bad past. She either has mental health issues like amnesia, extreme subservience, depression, inner turmoil. She has a ability to be a super soldier, go around shooting people with guns, and then she can never get hit by bullets unless it's for a character plot, unless it's for a story plot point. So there is a lack of verisimilitude, and there's also just going off the what's cliche within that genre, and they could have done more with that. I also felt that I still remember it, but I did have a couple of drinks. I apologize, but it helps me think about my ideas. But I do want to kind of say I think like overall there are a lot of strengths in this anime. I think the strengths outweigh the weaknesses. I may do another video on the emotional beats, but I think that as far as emotional storytelling, it does it very, very well. But I don't think there's an overarching message of this. I think this is more of a character study of a character in a fictional world. And that's usually not that great because, in truth, you can't resonate with that unless you're saying that this is an allegory for people with post-traumatic stress disorder or depression or overcoming trauma. And as somebody who has trauma in my life, even though I'm not diagnosed by a psychologist, I have a lot of things that go along with the things that I'm researching, but I will not take credit and say that I'm a trauma victim. But somebody who I can say I have signs of trauma, but not diagnosed, if that's fair to say. I think that from what I've experienced in my traumatic experiences, I can kind of say that there's some accuracies. And I think that, this is a very deep psychological character in many regards, but not in all the regards. I think that this is a good 50-50 anime. If I was to give it a grade, 9 out of 10, I would not give it a 10. I would not give it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would give it probably like, maybe I would say maybe like a 7, and that's kind of fair. Definitely one of those animes that are good, but not something that should be a classic or whatever, and not really that genre bending. And I also think that, if you're going to do characters in the girls with guns genre, a female character who has very superior gun shooting abilities, you have to do a lot more than just making it so that they can dodge bullets and they have a traumatic past or they have psychological issues that are like amnesia or other things. You have to kind of make your characters more dimensional than that because it's almost like a trope now, and that's not good.